You are listening to Claret and Blue, an Aston Villa podcast brought to you by Birmingham Live.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Claret and Blue podcast. We're bringing you a little bit of different insight, I suppose, rather than mine and Dan's rambling on like men in the pub. We've got somebody who's kind of been there and lived it. I'd like to welcome aboard Josh Webb. How are you, Josh?
I'm very well, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Now, those of you who don't know Josh, not only is he one of my daughter's PE teachers over across our local school in Halesowen, but he's also, you were a next gen winner, weren't you, Josh?
Yeah, a long time ago.
It doesn't feel like 9 years ago. Time flies, doesn't it? So the reason we've invited Josh on to speak today, we want to talk about, obviously Villa announced their release list last week, and not only did it have Conor Hourihane and Ashley Young on, but it had half a dozen of the academy kids as well, who, like Josh, spent, probably a lot of their youth, being educated by Villa in educational terms and in footballing terms. And so I wanted to kind of get a perspective on what it's like coming to terms with, being released from Villa. Let's start at the beginning for you, Josh, if we can. How old were you when you first went to Villa?
I was in year 7, so that makes me 10 or 11. I progressed all the way through, got offered a scholarship at 15, and then I was there from 15 till 20 years old.
So a decade of your life, it's a big old chunk. So what was it like when you first got the call to join Villa? You a Villa fan anyway?
My dad was a Villa fan. I loved Thierry Henry. So wherever he went, that was my team. It was one of them things where I'd been into West Brom a couple of times, been into Warsaw, just never quite worked. And I remember my dad driving me on the first one. He said, we'll make this your last one so you can enjoy football, because I was obviously getting upset when I didn't get signed. Ever since that, I just went on and on and on and on. It was just one of them surreal things. Obviously, the first season I was there, it was under the old Bodymore Heath. So then my first proper season as a signed player was in the new facilities, big training ground and the swimming pool on site and the gym and all the pitches. It was amazing. It was just gives you that extra little bit of motivation, you'd say, to want to go all the way.
Is it excitement? Does it invite pressure? What's it like when you're turning up at a place like that?
I think because I'd been in a couple of the other ones, I think I went into Villa with a bit of, I know what to expect type of thing. I wasn't allowed to get ahead of myself. And I think it helped having the knockbacks, because I went into that thinking, well, I know what it's like to not get a yes. So I think I went in there a bit more relaxed, should I say, as silly as that sounds, going into trial at a club, because I was still playing district on the side on a Saturday. So then obviously you'd have your matches at Villa on a Sunday. So I was still getting that enjoyment. So I'd still seen all my friends, and the school were really supportive of me as well. So that was massive. But yeah, my mum and dad really kept me grounded. I used to remember, because my mum doesn't drive, so my dad would take me to everyone. We'd have obviously a 30, 40-minute conversation. And most of the time, it wasn't even on football.
Like, I'm a Halesowen lad as well. In terms of locally then, were you still playing for the school team and still...
At first, yeah, because it didn't clash with any Villa stuff. And I think the big thing was at a time where, when I went in on trial before, I didn't then get to play with my other mates. So obviously, I was going into a new place with players that were obviously better than me, not knowing anyone. I sort of lost my confidence a bit. So I know my dad said it's definitely make sure that we carry on with that side, because that's when you play your best, as anyone would when they're enjoying it.
You're at Villa, you go in there 2 or 3 times a week at the age of 10 or 11 years old. How full on is it then? And when does it start to become kind of properly full on?
It's about under 15s is when you get your end of under 14s. We had a few school release days. So obviously you come out of school and you just go to so you go down on training on a Tuesday night, you stop at a hotel, and then you go in for a full day's training on the Wednesday. And then under 15s, we did that all year. Year 11, under 16s, I was in Villa 2 days a week. And because of the high school I was at Lisos, they only did half a days on a Friday. You're only in school till 1:30. So I was only actually in school about 2.5, 3 days max.
And who were your coaches have been coming through the ranks at Villa?
So we had Gordon Cowans, Sean Verity, Ben Petty, and then obviously you go on to Tony McAndrew and Kevin McDonald.
And talk about some of the lads who you're with then. Was it generally kind of most of that next gen team?
So we had
Stella, Jack Grealish.
We had Jack Grealish, Callum Robinson, Jordan Graham, Dan Crowley when he was a bit older, come up to us, Lewis Kinsella, Brad Lewis, And then when you get into the next gen, you had Janoid Anassian, Daniel Johnson, Samir Carruthers, Derek Williams. So it's quite a good squad.
When you said it started kind of getting a little bit more, I don't know, involved, I suppose, at the age of 15, 16, does that become, is it more almost like a kind of full-time job then?
It's more just the excitement of what it could be. So I remember I think it was year 10 or year 11, we had to do work experience where you have to go and find a job basically for a week. And Villa said I can go in there for a week. And after that week, I remember coming back saying, I can see myself doing this. This is what I want to do.
Did you have to kind of do the usual kind of sweeping the dressing rooms and cleaning boots and stuff like that?
Yeah, cleaning boots, blowing up balls, getting cones ready. I remember once it was snowing and the first team had their pitch cover on. We were training in the barn, but training session was stopped by the first team to go and clear the pitch, to get the cover and everything off and stuff like that. But there was bonuses on match days. You'd have to go in and help. 3 of you would go in and help the kit man. So you'd have to clean the kit after the change room after the game. At half time, you'd have to collect all the balls in and stuff like that. So it's a good experience being on the pitch with 40,000 fans, even though you weren't playing.
Whose boots did you cop for?
I had Gabby up on the horse.
Did he tip?
No. I remember my first ever training session. I think I was 16. Kevin McDonald said, "You're up with the first team." It just felt as if every pass I received was like a shot. It wasn't. It was just a normal pass to them. But I think that was the big moment. You're thinking, "Wow, this is next level." But it's always like a bit of initiation. I remember Stan Petrov said to me, he goes, after the first few passes, when you've controlled it and passed it off and kept the ball, they said, "Oh, we can trust him, it's fine." It was one of them ones where let's see if you can handle it type of thing.
Is it hard, though, when you're stepping up into that level and you know that what's got you to that stage is obviously a lot of hard work, but natural ability as well? Is it hard to play naturally? Is there danger of you overthinking?
I didn't do after. I just literally, the first thing I saw, I just did it. I just kept everything as simple as I could. I'd say it took me about 5 or 6 sessions with them to then start to feel as if I could be myself type of thing.
So what's the kind of day in the life like when you've just left school, you've got your scholarship at Villa? Is it kind of a mixture of education and training? Is that generally it?
I think you did education 4 out of the 5 days a week for 2 hours, either on a morning or an afternoon. In the morning, you'd come in, and if it was your week on the equipment, you had to make sure all the equipment was ready. All the GPS vests, everything, the testing was done. After training, you couldn't go up to eat until the first team had finished because you had to clean their boots before you got to go and eat type of thing. It's good. I quite liked it. It was like a routine. It was showing that you have to start at the bottom to then build your way up. But I think, I know it's a lot different now. What
was your highlight? Was the next gen win your highlight?
We won the Reserve League in my first season there, which was unreal at 16. I remember we then played at Old Trafford in the final, but lost on penalties to Man United. Next gen's got to be there, but I think also having the opportunity to represent my country was quite a big one for me and my family. I remember when the first letter came through to say that you'd been selected and been called up.
Was that under 18s?
16s, 17s, 18s. It's more since I've come out of it and I reflect back, I probably didn't realise I was doing as well as I did. Like I say, it's probably one of my downfalls was I probably didn't realise I was as good as I was. So I just took it for what it was, thinking, oh, well, I'll go to this one, but I probably won't get called up to the next one type of thing, rather than thinking, oh, I'm one of the best in my age in the country.
I mean, I was doing a little bit of homework just before I jumped on the call with you. And I remember it now because I was out in Germany for the pre-season with Paul Lambert. I think I'd fallen out with Paul Lambert, so I think I was staying somewhere in Dusseldorf, and I think the team base was about 60 miles away from there. But I remember Claret got injured, I think, and I think you were summoned to join the squad at fairly late notice. Was that the kind of time when you probably felt most involved with the first team, or am I missing lots of other opportunities when you were close?
When Kev Mack was there, and I think Alex McLeish was the manager, because the reserves were so close then at the time, I was fortunate to train quite a lot with them that year. But obviously, I was only still 16, so realistically, I knew nothing. It was only really training. And then I remember Gordon Cowans rang me saying, we just got our kit on that day for the next season. I remember he ringing me saying, have you unpacked your kit yet? I was like, no, it's still in my room. He goes, well, you need to because you're flying out to Germany tomorrow. And that was a bit like, oh, right, okay. Because he came out to watch the final of the next gen, Paul Lambert. So I know that he'd been watching and stuff. And then me and Graham Burke had to catch a flight the next day out to Germany.
So would those have been your kind of first team debuts? Had you played in any friendlies previously, or?
No, those were the first two. And then obviously we came back and we played Wickham. I played Wickham and Luton.
What was it like when you're playing at places like Villa Park and Old Trafford? You know, that must be pretty good for the ego.
Oh, it was surreal. But obviously, when you're in the moment, you're obviously thinking, "Oh, this is what I want to do." It wasn't until you go and speak to your family and your friends, you're like, "So what's Old Trafford like?" But obviously, because you're that focused on the game, don't really then take in what you've just done. Because not many people can say they've played at Villa Park, Old Trafford, the Emirates, the Etihad. Whereas to me, that was just me trying to be focused, thinking, "Well, this is." Fortunate to say this is my job, hopefully.
Did it just become another football pitch?
No, I don't think it'll ever become another football pitch. The stadium and the history and stuff. I don't think it'll ever become another football. I know Old Trafford is one of the biggest pitches, but Villa Park seemed to be the biggest out of the lot.
Probably coming to the depressing bit a little bit here. What stage was it, Josh, when you thought, you know, I'm going to get the call into the office soon? You know, 'cause you must get a sense even before the final decision comes.
Well, the season before, we were looking at the options because I wasn't too sure. I got offered to stay another year. So obviously the plan was to try and stay another year, then hopefully go out on loan. Didn't quite work, so then started going, and then I went up to Kilmarnock in the Scottish Prem. And I remember after I think it was about a week, I was driving back, and then my agent rang me saying, "Look, you've got a deal on the table. They've offered you something." So that was quite nice driving back, knowing that I had that, because obviously I knew what was coming at Villa. A month after, Sean Kimberley, the current academy manager, had come in and just said, "Look, we know you've got that offer, so it's probably the best time for us to do," which I knew it was coming. So It wasn't as if it was a shock for me. So I'd seen, obviously, it's always hard when you have your friends or your team who you've grown up with. So all our team were together when I was there at under 10s, 11s. So then by the time you get to scholarship, and then after scholarship, some of them don't get kept on, some of them don't get kept on. So you start to lose them a little bit. So I knew it was coming. I was okay with that because it was different for me because I had something lined up.
You got Tim Sherwood who's the manager who starts the season. Remy Gard does the middle portion of the season. I think is it Eric Black who then takes over for the last couple of months. Is any of the first team managers involved in this, or have they got too much to worry about kind of dealing with what they're dealing with?
Kevin McDonald had helped me a lot anyway, so they knew I had something concrete.
Yeah.
It was quite easy for me to just sit down. They'll just say, "Look, we're here if you need any help and stuff like that, but we know you've got something lined up." So it was probably the easiest conversation that they'd had, even though I'd been there for 10 years.
What kind of support do you get from the coaches like Ben Petty and Sid and whoever's still around at that time? Do they still kind of almost become mentors for you going forward as well?
Well, like I said, they've always been like that, but I think it was a little bit different for me because I'd gone up to Kilmarnock where Lee Clark was there at the time, and I had something sorted. So it was more me just staying switched on, keeping myself fit, keeping myself ticking over. And I think at the time we were trying to win the Premier League too. And I think we were close to getting in the final against Arsenal at the Emirates for the last game of the season. So I was still quite focused in that sense because I thought we could go out on a high, get promoted for the last one. I knew Lewis Kinsella was going into Colchester, and then he went on to sign for them. I knew Janoy was going because he'd just come back from a loan anyway. So I knew he was going into somewhere else. I think Benji went back to playing Switzerland, I think, off the top of my head.
What does the club do, Josh, if you haven't got anything lined up?
So if you've got nothing, you get two more payments. So when the season finishes, you get 2 more months worth of payments if you haven't found another club. I know that they always offered me numbers. Well, not numbers. They would speak to somebody if I wanted to go into there. But because obviously I was aware of the season before what was going on, I was quite onto it to get it sorted.
So there is a kind of level of aftercare then. So they'll make sure that you're not just, not one day that you.
No, you don't just walk out. You don't just walk out and then never hear anything again. Because once you sign a new contract, I know they have to talk to somebody and get it sorted out that way.
Are there such things as kind of open trials and stuff like that released players from various clubs can go to?
I believe so. I've never been to one. But I do believe there are open trials where you can go and be watched, and so I know that they did a lot for that. Is it the V9 Academy and stuff like that, where if you've just been released, you can go into stuff like that.
How much kind of psychologically and emotionally, and I suppose it depends on what kind of character you are and what support network you've got around you and how you've managed your own expectations. But how difficult an adjustment is it to make to think that you could potentially go on to become a Premier League footballer, to kind of gradually realising that you're going to have to look at other options? Is that difficult for a young lad to come to terms with?
I would say so, yeah, but I'd say by the time I think it's a lot different now, because obviously working at Villa now, I see it from a different perspective, and obviously the standard's gone up and up and up. You've always got to be playing above where you should be. So I was quite fortunate. I didn't play much youth team, whereas now they say if you're a youth team player, you should already be in the 23s. Yeah. That's the aim, the way of challenging type of thing. So I think you can get a good grasp as you go in, but everything changes because you get a lot of players now that come into non-league and then go back into full-time football anyway.
Yeah.
I think the opportunities there now are completely different because I'm in non-league. You can see players coming from non-league and going back into the Conference Prem because it's still full-time football.
Yeah.
I know people say the Premier League's the goal, but surely you want to be playing full-time football at any level to then build yourself back up.
I think it's a good point because the standards throughout the divisions and even into the conference and beyond now, it is a good level of football. And, you know, you're not going to get quite as rich playing down the pyramid as you are in the Premier League, but it's still... Do you know what I mean? It's still
full-time football. Yeah. I mean, there's a team in my league now, Church, that have just developed a hybrid program. So they're step 3 and they're going to be training every day.
What would your advice be to, I don't know, a kid who gets snapped up and plays in the academy or any academy at the age of, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10? Should the dream be to play football rather than to play football in the Champions League or the Premier League or for this particular club? Just try and make a living or
I think you've got to set goals, haven't you? I think that's what is your motivation. Doesn't matter what job you're in, you have to set goals. And there's nothing wrong with saying I want to play in the Premier League, because then that's down to you then to how you're going to do that. Are you going to work hard? Are you going to do extra practice? But I think as you grow up and go up and go up, then you've just got it's mental strength. And I know Villa do this a lot now, a lot more when I was there. They have psychologists.
Yeah.
And I think I think the mental side now of football is scary, how important the mental side of football is. So it's not just how good you believe you are, but how do you block out the noises? How do you come back from injuries? So don't know off the top of my head any player that's gone through without an injury or without a setback. So I think the mental side of it, I think it's the mental, which I learned a lot, was the mental side of football that people probably don't quite see. The training every day, when you're injured, you can't train, then it puts you a setback to then play. If you're playing and you don't win a game, or it's bigger than what I think just playing football.
Probably further down football pyramid, there's probably players who ability-wise, in terms of talent, are as good as those towards the top, but it's just, are those the fine lines, kind of that super kind of confidence and that, you know, being psychologically strong? Or,
well, like you said, you've got the psychologist now, but I don't think that's something you can teach. Obviously, you can practice to be the best technically you can train to be the fittest, but to have that mindset of saying I want to be the best, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or nothing's going to faze me, is not something that's that easy to teach. It's something that will grow over time with practice. So I think a lot of people who've got that mentality will make a career somehow, in some league, just for the resilient side of football, because it is a ruthless industry.
I mean, I'm not sure you ever lost your love of football, but how did you kind of almost kind of weather that storm and come through?
Oh no, I'd definitely say I lost my love of football. So I went up to Kilmarnock and it just didn't quite work out. It was just one of them things. Maybe it was down to myself. Maybe it was that side of being 20, going to live 5.5 hours away. It was a completely new experience, which is definitely something I believe now is why alone is so important. Men's football, 3 points matter, performance doesn't matter as much. It's a big eye-opener, a crowd that expects a lot but doesn't realise the situation it's in. It was quite interesting. So I think, so obviously, if you would have said to me after I played football a year later, you'd be coaching, I would have said no chance. I just wanted to play golf. I just wanted to take my head completely away from football and not have anything to do with it. And then obviously I was still speaking to Sean Verity playing golf, and then you slowly start to get that feeling and you feel it coming back saying, yeah, I still want to be involved. So went through the PFA, did my UEFA B course, and then that was it. Then the coaching side of it brought me back to wanting to play again.
People who have looked after you previously still looking out for you, I suppose.
But I said, can I remember saying, can I come in and watch a training session? And just I wanted to bounce some ideas off people just to see where I was going to go next. And it was just then, obviously being an ex-player there, they're more than happy for me to come up. Just volunteering. I wasn't asking to be, but just to go and watch, just to be involved. So obviously I had a lot of spare time, can go up in the day, release days. And that was quite good, seeing it again, but seeing it from a different perspective. And then that set my interests off, trying to work it out from the other side, because now I get to see it from a coach's side, and because I'm still playing, I see it from the player's side. Could
you feel it coming back then when you went on those little kind of days to observe? Could you just feel that kind of, passion for it coming back?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously now it's new. I think obviously when I play football, I was all about like a thinking type of player, how it worked, reading the game type of thing. So this really intrigued me because it's more about your brain than as a coach. How do you get the best out of a certain type of individual? How do you make it more for the team? So there's lots of different factors that you've got to try and work out.
So what age group is it that you're looking after now?
I'm with the under-9s at the minute. So obviously I've only just qualified, so it was a good start to go in, because obviously to build the facts. Obviously I spoke a lot to Mark Delaney, and he started off in the foundation and built his way up through the age groups that way. I have a Wednesday evening, and then Thursdays, it will stop now, but they have school release where they come out of school for half a day. Then you have a Saturday morning and then a game on a Sunday.
So you're getting to spend a decent chunk of time kind of helping to shape these kids?
You'd like to think so, yeah. Football's not serious to them. It is purely just the love of football. And it's good, especially that age group, because you can try new things, see what works. And they don't know. So obviously it's all about infusing. That brought my game, because they're so enthusiastic. It's helped me get that enthusiasm back as well. Before you started any match, you had to have your shirt tucked in. It was just every time you saw a coach, you had to go and greet the coach with a handshake and stuff like that. So it's just little things like that you don't realise. It's just building that foundation, isn't it, of having respect for your coaches, respect for your teammates, how you conduct yourself, how you look. It's just little things at the time I thought as a player, I was like, oh, why have I got to do this? Why do I have to tuck my shirt in? Why have I got to shake you out? But now you get it. It makes sense.
You're involved with the under-9s 4 times a week. I know you're kind of doing stuff kind of the local school as well. How do you find time to train and play?
So Villa have been really good with me, because I got myself into Villa, got myself into position, and then I was asked to go and play football at step 3. So I was at Coleshill Town because they only train once a week, and it worked quite. I really like the manager. It worked quite well for me around my busy life. And then I had someone who I knew quite well take over Hensford Town, and asked me to go in. And I spoke to the head of coaching at Villa and said, look, I've been asked to do this, but I know that the coaching is a new career. I don't see football as a career now. Yeah. Football's a bit of enjoyment on the side.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, well, playing and coaching alongside is going to help you in the long run. Yeah. So he said, leave it with me. The next day, come back saying, right, we're going to put you with foundation and you can still play. So Villa are really good to me. So if I've got a really far away game, they're okay with me having it off as long as it's not all the time. But if I have to get off half an hour early to get to a game, they're absolute. So they've been really good with me in that sense. So it works around it quite well.
So do you feel you've kind of got your swagger or your mojo back on a football pitch now as well?
Yeah. So last year was probably the best I felt football-wise. And then about 8 games in, I did my MCL. So that was another welcome back to football type of thing. The thing I enjoy about it most now is whilst I'm training and I'm being coached at Hensford, I'm thinking of it in a different way. So rather than sometimes when you do a session, you're thinking, oh, why are we doing this? Now I'm thinking, oh, I can see why he's doing this because we've got to do X, Y, Z.
So it almost kind of completes a circle in a way that you coaching makes you a better player and you playing makes you a better coach. Is that the way you look at it?
That's how I'm trying to look at it, yeah. So obviously the more I can play, then the more experiences I get at doing, especially I've been in the academy system for so long. I was in the Scottish Premiership for a short amount of time. I went to Kiddie in the Conference North for a short amount of time, but still saw the training. Whereas now I'm in non-league, I've seen a little bit of everything. Even though I didn't play in the Premier League, I saw how Premier League players trained. So I feel like I've got a vague understanding of nearly all the areas of the different leagues that you should want to aim for. It's just one of the things. It was just one of the ones, like I said to you before, as I probably didn't realise until now where I was or what I did. So obviously when someone asks me, well, what did you do in football? I'm not someone that's going to blurt out what I've done.
Yeah.
And then when they ask me more and I tell them, they're like, oh, you were actually quite good then, wasn't you? And it's a bit like, oh, yeah, maybe I was. But it's not something, if I resent it, it's not going to help me.
Yeah.
And then the longer it's going to take me to get over something to get to where I am now. But the biggest thing for me is, like you say, the ones that are getting released, if they back themselves, they've just got to get their head down, work hard. I was always sceptical about going non-league or going down to the conference when I was at Villa, but probably that was my biggest mistake. Just go and play men's football, because you'll learn more stuff in 2 training sessions than you could. Because we've got someone at Hensford, he was at Wolves, come out of Wolves, he played 1 year at Hensford, and I've said to him, and he agreed with me, you've learnt more in that 1 year than you have the last 8 years in the academy. If you can go there and show your potential, show what you've made of, the opportunities are still there if you're willing to work hard and do it. It's a bit different for someone like me, but you still get people like me playing in the league that were willing to help you and do that stuff anyway. We'll have the opportunities if you do well at non-league. A lot of players are going up now from non-league, even if it's to conference prem. That's still full-time football. That's still a job. That's still your job then, a full-time footballer.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really nice way to finish it. It's kind of, it doesn't have to be the end. It can be the start. Just kind of, just buy yourself some thinking time and some breathing space, and just come roaring back and trust the people around you, I suppose. I
think it was, especially in academy, it was like, oh, do you want to go play non-league? Oh, no. Why would I want to? But actually, why would you not want to go and play step 1, step 2, maybe step 3? Go and be the best player week in, week out. Go and score loads of goals. Go and make loads of assists. Go and keep loads of clean sheets. Because the way football is now, stats, if you can get good stats, people will come and watch you, and then that's when you show them what you're about.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for talking us through your journey. Like I said, without trying to flatter you too much, you seem to have kind of emerged from it in a strong place, and with a great gig, if I'm being honest. Coaching at Villa, still playing to a good level and getting paid for it. I mean, I wouldn't want to have to kind of teach my daughter PE. I know how difficult that is, but the rest of it, mate, it sounds like you're having, you've kind of bounced back in some style. So thanks for sharing it with us. We will get you back on in future to talk. I want to tell the story of that next gen properly with the likes of you and Lewis Kinsella and whichever of your mates.
Well, like I say, it was that long ago. I'm going to have to watch the videos back.
Well, Lewis can do plenty of talking anyway, so we'll try and get that sorted in the next couple of months. But you've been watching me, Matt Kendrick, with Josh Webb on Claret and Blue podcast. Until next time, up the Villa.
Thank you for listening to Claret and Blue and Aston Villa podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode, but until then, up the Villa.